today marks 5 years since the murder of Tshegofatso Pule. The 28-year-old was 8 months pregnant at the time. Her death sparked national outrage and highlighted the pervasive issue of gender-based violence in South Africa. In the years following Tshegofatso's death, South Africa, of course, has witnessed a series of harrowing events that underscore the persistent threat of the scourge in the country. Notably, in fact, just recently, the murder of Olorato Mongale, and the latest, of course, being the discovery of the mutilated body of a 14-year-old in Roodepoort. Let's speak about this with Botlhale Modisane, who's with the Tshegofatso Pule Foundation and joins us now live. And Botlhale, it's great to have you on the program. Thanks very much indeed for making time. Botlhale, I beg your pardon. Apologies for that. And thank you very much once again for making time to speak to us. And it's a bit unsettling, isn't it, that 5 years down the line, the stories dominating headlines today are so similar to what we were speaking about at the time of Tshegofatso Pule's passing.
Good morning, and certainly extremely unsettling. I think for us, I've been saying since yesterday, this is definitely rehashing all the turmoil of emotions that we went through 5 years ago with Tshego. Most more so because in exactly 2 days, Tshego will be, marking 5 years since her passing. So it is so heart-wrenching that, just in 2 days when we're supposed to be commemorating Tshego, right now we are sitting here and trying to figure out how to emotionally support the, Likora's family and also the community of Salt Blackie.
Yeah. Help us perhaps take stock of the impact of something like this, because what I've always bemoaned is that often there's outrage, it makes news headlines, we speak about it for, the week until a funeral is held, and sadly the news cycle and its consciousness moves on, but the impact on the affected families, of course, lasts way longer than that.
100% it does, and this is exactly why a foundation such as ours was birthed. What we do is that we offer support, be it going to court, making sure that due processes are followed, making sure that the families are connected to the right stakeholders in order for them to get the support that they deserve. Because at this time we are so lost, nothing makes sense. Whenever you go to court, whenever you try to liaise with the police, you're always hitting a heartbreak. And, we understand fully, we understand firsthand what the family is going through. But one thing that remains is that no amount of words of comfort will be able to heal the family. It is absolutely sad. But, another thing that we've noticed is that every single time we reach the winter season, the autumn-winter season, there seems to be a spike in the femicide cases and GBV as well. So I don't know what is really happening. Is it maybe that people are so complacent and so comfortable that they know that they're only going to get a slap in the wrist when they are arrested? And the reason I say so is that, look at the people who murdered Olorato. 2 of them were arrested just the week prior, and they were released on bail. Had the law taken its course, had the law been harsher on them, Olorato would still be alive. Yeah.
In the line of work you do, are you finding that's where the gap is? Is it still around the country's legislation?
There is a huge gap. We still have a lot of victims who will end up in the police station and not to follow ups on their cases, simply because, unfortunately, you still get to, the police station and you're still told, go speak to your perpetrator or bring your perpetrator in order for us to open a case. When we at ground level are still struggling with little things like that, when we know very well that the law has said that, as soon as somebody comes and reports GBV, they are supposed to be taken seriously. Unfortunately, we're still suffering at ground level as well. So what more at higher level? People still don't understand, the gravity of GBV. So we are far from, being heard. We are far from getting justice. There's still a huge gap in the line of work that we do.
Sure. And of course, I find that we don't usually take stock of the mental toll this happens or this takes, even if the perpetrators are found. I mean, for example, in Olorato's case, we heard the family saying that whilst, I suppose, in a way, they're pleased that the alleged perpetrator was found, they still would have wanted to look him in the eye and try get some answers around, at the very least, why anybody would do something like this. Does this resonate with what you're hearing typically when you speak to victims of this kind of violence?
100%. And even if they were to, they were given the opportunity to be able to face the perpetrator and get a few answers, honestly, it would have just made sense and healed just a fraction of the huge pain. But I suppose different stroke for different folk. Most people do say at least if I can face them, but with other people they may find solace in the fact that the person will never be able to hurt the next person. So it differs, it varies from family to family, but of course in the end everybody does deserve answers.
Yeah, absolutely. You've already touched on this, but I suppose it's worth speaking about more explicitly the work done by the foundation itself, and I imagine it's all in part of keeping with Tshegofatso Pule's legacy.
100%. If you could remember, just like Likona, Tshegofatso was also murdered and hanged in Durban Deep, and for us, when the family set us down, they had asked us to say, yes, Tshegofatso has been spoken about worldwide, and yes, we are currently seeking justice. But what we would love more than anything is for people to be able to speak of Tshegofatso's name and not necessarily concentrate on, on how she was brutally murdered, but rather let us use her name to do good deeds and to serve and to protect, other women and children out there. And not to say that, men are not counted. We do protect men as well, but we are following a mandate and the wishes of the family to say, we would like for Tshegofatso's name to be remembered for the good that it carries.
Yeah. In most discussions that take place on platforms like these, there's usually a very unanimous sentiment that South Africa has a big crime problem, but I'm still struggling to kind of really put my finger on what it'll take to change the tide, especially because half a decade later, the discussion for me doesn't feel like it's moved at all. What would you reckon, for example, if you had the ear of the president, what would you reckon the focus ought to be to at least stop moving the needle so that in 5 years' time, that list that Tshegofatso, Likona, Uyinene, and so many others are on doesn't keep growing?
Firstly, I would say, we ought to be empowered. The people on the ground, we ought to be empowered. We lack funding and resources to be able to do our work efficiently. I mean, even with us, we are still self-funded, and every single thing that we do, we dig in our pockets and we try to reach whatever families that we try to reach in order for us to assist them. And remember, these cases can drag, they can take so long. And if we're going to be able to support a family, for a case that's going to be dragging for about 5 years, you can imagine how much, immobile we become as an organization. But also, whatever changes that are made in the legislation, they need to make sure that the information filters down properly, down to the ground. When you walk into the police station, every single police officer needs to know, the information, everything that has been changed. We need to be able to say, they need to do away with the whole thing that people can just be granted bails, especially when you hear somebody is kidnapped, when you hear somebody is murdered. It shouldn't be that because you've got a well-spoken representative or anything of that sort, then you can get away with it. You need to be able to face the harsh might of the law. But in South Africa, unfortunately, we're still far from getting that. People know that they always get a slap on the wrist, and so we are way too far from conquering this femicide issue.
Yeah, absolutely. And long may your work continue, given just how pervasive the issue still is. Botlhale Modisane, thanks very much indeed for speaking to us. We really do appreciate the time and the sentiments. Botlhale, of course, with the Tshegofatso Pule Foundation.